Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you so much.
Kris, were you impressed with Finance Minister Bill Morneau's forecast of a $343 billion deficit and a $1 trillion plus debt for Canada?
Well, this is highly concerning, but we do always want to start with something positive. We were pleased, if we can use that word in this situation, pleased to hear him say that hiking taxes is the worst thing they could do right now, to paraphrase. So we're glad so far. It doesn't look like they're planning on hiking taxes. The problem, as you point out, is we're now on track to a more than $1 trillion debt. We literally are our debt clock. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we have a big debt clock. Basically looks like the shape of a horse trailer that we pull around Canada sometimes behind a pickup truck. There's no room left on it. We're going to have to, scotch tape a 1 up next to the running debt clock now. That's how bad this has gotten. And the concern here is that there's no real path forward on how they're planning on slaying this or even trying to get their arms around it. So while it's good that they gave us an update, a fiscal update, one, we would like more information, and two, man, they have got to get their books in order and tell us how they plan on climbing out. It's like they've just announced, hey, everybody, we're lost in the woods. But they haven't said, oh, wait a minute, here's my compass, here's my mirror for signaling, this is how we survive and this is how we get back. We need to hear that part of the story now.
Do you think that BC should have an inquiry into the high death rate and what looks like abuse of people in long-term care homes?
You know, it's always something that we would encourage. Inquiries are a good thing, and they don't have to cost a lot of money. We have the apparatus at the legislature. These are called committees. We have the power to summon people to them. They go on the record. We have elected officials from all sides of the aisle lined up on either side of the table. We have a committee chairperson who dictates who gets to talk and when and how much time they have. We can all be broadcast. The press can go there. You know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. The apparatus is there. Thank goodness. It's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years within our parliamentary democracy. So, yeah, if they're finding that a disproportionate number of people are dying in care homes, crack open the books, call in people, get them on the record and get them to answer questions. You know, as much as we, look down to the states and say, oh, well, that we don't like how their system works, they are able to get some information out during big committee hearings. And we have all that power up here. We need to start using it much more often. And that way we can get to the bottom of things. And this way it keeps everybody honest. No matter what party it is, you get real answers. And frankly, even if these were just mistakes and nobody's negligence, you can learn from it. You can say, oh, that's why that happened, because this hand wasn't talking to the other, through no, bad intention. But if it's a mistake, it can at least then be fixed. So yeah, we think it's a really good idea to always inquire into these things.
Because government money goes into those long-term care homes. You want to make sure that not only is that money well spent, but that the people are getting decent treatment with that money. Absolutely, because these are all people. It's easy sometimes if you're not related to a person to just start thinking them as numbers. But I find sometimes it's a better practice to, even in your head, imagine people's faces and put names to them. And then imagine how would you feel if that were your loved one. And then, yeah, if you turn away from the very serious human and personal side of it, you're right. It's taxpayers' money funding these things, and we always want the best possible outcomes.
So, yeah, on both sides of that coin, they should have inquiries into these matters.
Was there any concern by the Taxpayers Federation when a Chinese firm owned by the Chinese government bought up BC's biggest long-term care home?
That's a great question. And again, this is the sort of stuff that could be asked at committee. I think a lot of people were taken by surprise. Unless you follow what the Chinese government does and doesn't buy, on the market or not, or if you happen to be a very keen news watcher and you have somebody living in long-term care that who else would have really flashed on that? The average person is so busy working and taking care of their own households, they will not know. But if you have this sort of stuff go before committees and they're televised and then reporters report on them, then the rest of us can read about it. So again, that's exactly an example of something that should be discussed at a committee at the legislature.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, have you noted the BC municipalities that are doing a good job of helping businesses get back on their feet through this virus crisis, and those that seem to be throwing more roadblocks up? And I'm thinking of Port Coquitlam, for example, that sent idled municipal workers to help build patios for restaurants. Meanwhile, Surrey charges enormous fees to just apply for a patio.
We have, and we share exactly your observations. And further to that, as we know, the city of Vancouver slowly dragging its feet on either drinking alcohol in beaches, in public parks, and by adults and things like that, and or opening up patios faster and more easily. There's good examples here, and what's really, if we can take a silver lining out of any of this mess that we're in right now, is this is all within Metro Vancouver, or the GDRV. So if you take a look at all of it, you can take different communities like Port Coquitlam and compare it with Surrey. And then you can say, going forward, what worked better, Port Coquitlam or Surrey? And then adopt it. Just copy them. If there's something that gets businesses back on their feet and saves taxpayers money and gets people back to work, it's win-win-win all round. And it's really encouraging to see very common sense, simple solutions like we frequently see in Port Coquitlam. Quite often, in fact, just recently, they had one of the lowest, I think it was still an increase. Correct me if I'm wrong. They had one of the lowest property tax increases within the entire region, within the Lower Mainland. And they said, wanted to focus on simple things like keeping the streets clean, keeping the potholes filled, and collecting our waste and our garbage and recycling on time. Those are basic city services that people really rely on, and that's what they want to see. They don't want to see their city mayor, for some random reason, flying to New York to go to a UN conference. That's just a waste of taxpayers' money and of city time. But with common sense solutions like we've seen in the city of Port Coquitlam being applied to this COVID recovery, using municipal workers to help people bang together some patios to get those pubs and restaurants back open, that's so smart. And it would cost us next to nothing. It's win-win.
And Delta also should be mentioned for allowing restaurants to build patios without applying to City Hall. They'll only look into them if there's been complaints, and so far I don't think I've heard of any complaints. That's
so smart, right? Just say yes unless it has to be no. And if it has to be no, you're right, that can come in through a call. Somebody could say, God forbid that they couldn't get, say, their walker or something down a sidewalk. I think most businesses wouldn't do that. They have decency and common sense for the most part. But if something like that came up, then say something. But if not, let the default just be yes. You save so much time, money, and paperwork that way.
Also, we should mention North Vancouver City is going to allow limited drinking in a few parks as an experiment. Should they get a shout-out?
Yes, they should. Anytime, frankly, if anybody sees stuff like this where they've been cutting red tape and cutting rules in order to help people get back to work and to get to more common sense, send me an email. I would just love to hear some good news stories. I want to write a piece on this because, frankly, I think people need some encouragement. The news is depressing, to say the least. So if we can give shout-outs to people who are doing this right, absolutely. And with North Vancouver, that's a neat move because in some different jurisdictions around the world, obviously, adults, while keeping calm, you can't be a hooligan, are allowed to have a glass of wine or a can of beer while minding their own business and enjoying a park or a beach. And so long as they get home safely with a designated driver, that's smart. You're a functioning adult. It's only if and when somebody crosses a line and disturbs someone else and violates that social contract and social order, then bylaw can get involved. And if not bylaw, police can get involved.
Well, yeah, we have disturbing the peace, unruly conduct, mischief.
Exactly.
All those things still available for somebody, so it doesn't have to be alcohol related.
Exactly. So again, in other words, let it always be yes, unless and until it must become no.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Cypress Development Corp is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, does the equalization payment transfer system in Canada need to be revised?
We need a complete overhaul of this system. For people who want to go to sleep when they hear equalization payments, I don't blame you. But in a nutshell, it's wealth redistribution on a national scale. And so what they do in very simple terms, it's a complex formula, but simple terms, the federal government takes from provinces that have more wealth coming out of them, and it gives that money to provinces that don't have as good of an economy or GDP. Now, on the surface, that sounds nice. It sounds downright neighborly, helping somebody out when they need a hand up. But the problem here is, like you always will get with anything on a national scale or that multiple governments are dealing with, it can get encumbered and clumsy and slow. And now we're in a situation where Alberta, they're now going to have a referendum. Premier Jason Kenney has thrown it down. They're going to have a vote on equalization. Alberta and the rest of the West typically are always the givers, while other provinces and regions, such as Quebec and the Maritimes, are often the takers. And it isn't just a year here and there. So, for example, many of us will remember when BC actually had received some equalization payments. It only happened for a couple of years, and I think it was around $800 million. By contrast, we give more than $2 billion, with a B, per year. So for the most part, Alberta, BC, rest of the West, we're the ones that give, and it's the East that typically takes. I did want to point out, a lot of people don't know this. If you take a look at the article that I put in the province the other day, you can see the calculation. Manitoba has been in the receiving line for equalization for a long time. And per capita, depending on how you slice it, they can often take more than residents of Quebec, which is strange because they're blessed with natural resources, very similarly to BC. They have a lot of mining operations there. They should be able to start making money. The issue here that we mostly see as part of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is that this can lead to long-term dependence. every year or so, if you need a bit of a help out or something goes funny, like the Ontario economy really struggling, people can understand that. But now this has been generations building in places like the Maritimes. And some of your listeners might remember that New Brunswick, for example, is sitting on top of shale, and tons and tons and tons of it. Natural gas is filling that shale rock, and it can be used very similarly the same way it is in Pennsylvania, where there's an energy boom. But they literally had a riot and burned 6 police cars over this issue a few years ago. And even so, their premier has said recently, you know what? You guys should be cutting off equalization payments or reducing it in order to spur and or force provinces to develop their own natural resources. And so this is what we're trying to highlight. You can't just keep telling Alberta and BC, depending on how you slice it, and part of Saskatchewan, keep producing, keep mining, keep drilling, keep producing oil and gas, keep having all of these wonderful energy sources and fuels, and we will take the money, and in the meantime we'll block things like Energy East and call your oil dirty, as the Premier of Quebec said. This can't stand.
And Kris, going back to Ottawa, the Prime Minister, without tender, had handed out close to $1 billion contract to the We charity to distribute some kind of youth funds, and then rescinded that. You have found out more information, though, about Trudeau's personal family connection to that charity.
Yes, it's quite something. It's breaking all over the media now, and if you take a look at it, depending on which outlet you're reading, everything from the CBC to Canada Land in between has been reporting on this. Just today, it has broken that about $250,000 in speaking fees was given to the mother of the Prime Minister. So Justin Trudeau's our Prime Minister. His mother is Margaret Trudeau. All Canadians will remember and know her. She apparently was paid about $250,000 for around 24 or so speaking engagements from the We charity. Further, Justin Trudeau's younger brother, Alexander Trudeau, some people call him Sasha Trudeau, that's his nickname, he was apparently paid more than $30,000 for a speaking engagement. And this is important. Even if your dear listener is a huge fan of the Prime Minister and loves the Federal Liberal Party, take the names out of it, okay? Back up and just take the names out and say, federal government hands over $900 million to charity for them to administer youth program, full stop. Same charity pays speaking fees to Prime Minister's mother and brother. Further, Prime Minister's wife hosts a podcast for that charity. This is so tied to the Prime Minister's family. There's no way that this deal should have ever gotten off of a bureaucrat's desk. It just looks wrong. And in order to have accountability, you must have the appearance also of transparency. So even if money hadn't exchanged hands, this still wouldn't have looked right. Because in order for something to be ethical, it must also appear to be ethical. Because otherwise, if it looks, as people call it, shady, people start to lose confidence in whatever it is. It could be a government, it could be a corporation. They know this. This is literally in the Ethics Commissioner's rules. You can look it up on the website. So the very idea that this, hey, you know what, we've got $900 million of taxpayers' money lying around. We've got a cabinet of more than 70 people, plus all their staff, plus all the bureaucrats. We don't want to do the work to administer it. Let's hand it over to a charity tied back directly to the Prime Minister and his family and get them to hand out the money? No way, man. This should never have happened.
Kris, anything else that we should be keeping an eye on right now?
Just to stress to all the listeners, again, no matter who you vote for and which party is your favorite, it's that whole term you just used. We need to keep an eye on this stuff. Because media is changing, it's turning into really awesome, nimble broadcasts like this one. It's turning into more niche media. Fewer and fewer journalists are working in the big so-called mainstream media newsrooms. And so sometimes things can get lost. They can slip through the cracks. And all of your listeners can do a little bit of this work. If you go through expense reports, if you listen in on committee meetings, even using our video technology nowadays, if you see something, say something. contact a watchdog, contact a whistleblower. The Taxpayers Federation is just one of them. Contact the other media outlets and really put up a flag, because the more transparent we make our system, the better it will be for everybody.
Kris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you for caring.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. And I'm sure Kris wouldn't mind if you sent her an email or two at ksims@taxpayer.com. And if you have any questions for her as well, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.